Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Blast off on another VIP episode of Hero Paranormal Podcast, broadcasting from the base at La Madre Mountain, just south of Area 51. My name is Ryan, the original outlaw of the airwaves, bringing you a remarkable episode today. Today, we are in for an extra special treat from an extra special guest. We have Cheryl Lynn Carter, author, investigator, numerologist, explorer, seer, and overall awesome individual. Cheryl has written multiple books, including, but not limited to, Fear the Darkness, Edge of Darkness, and Whispers Beyond the Grave. Today we are discussing Cheryl's latest book, Dimensions, Mysterious Triangles of the U.S. This book literally knocked my socks off by the in-depth examples and overall research included in telling the mysterious story of doorways, parallel dimensions, and alternate realms in the universe that might compel us to question everything we thought we knew. She has delved into places of high strangeness and takes readers along on the journey. Cheryl has left no stone unturned when it comes to explaining the history of mysterious areas that claim ships, airplanes, and more people than anyone could ever imagine. Whether discussing puck wedgies or the mysterious shape-shifting Kushtaka, a huge half-otter, half-man entity which lives deep in the woods of Alaska, Cheryl paints a very realistic picture of very surreal locations, with rich histories of Native American entities and some very legitimate, more modern ones like the Goat Man of Pope Lick. Eerie harbingers of death and destruction are not left out of this magnificent work. Some of the most amazing UFO and extraterrestrial mysteries also radiate the pages of this unique book, and living in Nevada, I was blown away by some of the history of Groom Lake. The United States definitely has its share of mysterious triangles, and they seem to act as dimensional doorways, traversing time and space. Come along as we go deep into their rabbit hole. Cheryl Lynn Carter, welcome to the Hero Paranormal Podcast.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
It's going to be great. I'm super excited. Cheryl, there are so many places that we can start. Let me ask you this. What first brought you to reason a book like this that should be written about something because it's like this, because it's outstanding? It's a great idea.
Well, I'm a psychic medium, so I've always had high strangeness in my life. I'm a member of MUFON, and I live in Michigan where we have the Michigan Triangle, so I thought there's got to be more places in the United States besides just ours. So I started researching, and I found 10 more.
Oh, it's so cool. Well, I really, really enjoyed the book. It was like a serious page turner, and you have a renowned and long history of being intrigued by and studying the mysteries of the unknown and the paranormal. What started you down this path?
Well, I had my first experience when I was 4 years old when I saw a spirit, and I just been hooked my whole life. When I was 4 years old, didn't know quite what it was, probably not till high school, and then I just wanted more and more and more, which I still do.
Yeah.
You can never know too much about this.
No,
it's
such
mystery.
It is. I love it too. And it is. This book is amazing. Like I said, such a page turner. And One portion of your book described a unique location known as the Bennington Triangle, which the movie The Blair Witch Project was formulated after, a place with monsters, disappearances, murders, and mysteries. Do you mind if I read a short excerpt from this section and ask you some questions about it?
Sure, go ahead.
Awesome. So, this area has always had claims of many mysterious phenomena: strange sounds, anomalous lights, feelings of disorientation, people going insane, cryptids, and UFO sightings. The Algonquin people who inhabited the land from as far back as 8500 BC chose to avoid the land west of the Glastonbury Mountain, believing it to be a powerful place where there was a convergence of the four winds, believing it to be a passageway to another world, and they used it as a burial ground. That's kind of the kind of places we're talking about, and your book goes into so many other examples. They really are dimensional areas, and this particular one, the Bennington Triangle, is wild. Can we kind of dive into Bennington a little bit and all of the wild stuff that's happened there?
Probably the weirdest thing was the people going down the long trail that's in Vermont there,
Mm-hmm.
and they started disappearing. And it actually went on for 5 years. The first person, his name was Mitty Rivers. He was actually a guide, and he was taking some people down the trail, and he got a little bit ahead of them on the way back, and when they tried to catch up with him, he was gone. He just disappeared. They never found him.
Wild.
The next year, a college student named Paula Weldon decided to go take a walk down the trail like she always did. And she's walking down the trail. There was a couple walking behind her. They saw her go around a bend. When they got there, she has disappeared too.
Yeah.
Another man was called James Tedford. This one's really crazy. He was on his way back home on a bus. And all of a sudden, the people looked over, and he wasn't in his seat anymore, but his suitcase was there, but the bus never stopped. He had just disappeared off the bus, never to be found again.
That was so crazy.
The next one was a little boy named Paul Jepson. He was outside playing, and his father said he was always telling him that he was being called into the woods. Something was calling him into the woods. And one day he went in there, and they never found him again either.
Right.
And the last one was Frida Langer, and she was also camping there, and she went with one of her friends down the trail, and she got wet in the water, and she said, I'm going to go back and change. I'll meet up with you. And she never got back to camp. Her friend never found her. And after the 5 years, the disappearances just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did they go into another dimension? Did a portal open? What happened to them? No one ever knew.
Right. And, you know, this rich history in the Bennington area, it's so similar and reminds me so much of like Missing 411. And
Yeah.
it's just, you know, a lot of times these people, like you said, are in close proximity to other people, and then poof, they're gone.
Like how do you go missing off a bus that's getting stopped?
That was the craziest.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. Going back a bit in the book, another very strange part of the book. It's all amazing. This book is so great. The monstrous entity that really caught my attention was, of course, the Kushtaka, which was a shapeshifter, half man, half otter entity. And Alaska has a super rich history of strange creatures and multiple disappearances. I love shapeshifters, as you know, and I was
I do too.
I was fascinated by this creature. Let's talk a little bit about your Alaska section and what motivated you to include it in your book.
I've always been fascinated with Alaska. I've always wanted to go there. Probably never going to happen. It's too expensive for me. But I guess I was watching Ancient Aliens, and they were talking about the Alaskan Triangle one time. And I said, okay, I got to check this place out. And it has more disappearances than the Bermuda Triangle. Everybody thinks that the Bermuda Triangle is the place, you know.
Right.
But Alaska has a lot more disappearances. In fact, one of the most famous ones was the disappearance of the Contessa in 1812, where Democratic House Majority Leader Hale Boggs and the Alaskan House of Representatives Nicholas Beach boarded a small plane, and they were heading over to Alaska, and all of a sudden their plane just went down, and nobody knew why.
Right.
And the weird thing was, nobody went to look for this plane.
Mm-hmm.
And they think there was like some conspiracy theory that could be connected to Boggs, who says when he came back home, he was going to file some allegations about the FBI doing wiretapping on the members. And he wanted to open up the JF Kennedy assassination because he said he knew JFK had seen the aliens, the craft from Roswell, and he wanted to talk about that. And there's also a CIA wiretap where they got information from Marilyn Monroe's phone calls, where she was going to go for a press conference and talk about what JFK told her. And of course, Marilyn had committed suicide suddenly the next day.
Of course.
And this is all in papers called the Majestic 12, which was a secret organization to cover things up.
And you went into great detail. I love that about the book. Everything is not just kind of like quickly glossed over. You went into great detail, noting all the Majestic 12 members, many of the documents, and strange goings on. I thought that was absolutely great. And the other thing that I thought was great is that, yeah, you point out that everybody makes such a big deal about the Bermuda Triangle, but there are other areas, and it's astounding how many, where very similar things happen, aren't there?
Absolutely, and I says it's even more.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the numbers in these other places, and yeah, it's even crazier than Bermuda Triangle.
Mm-hmm. Way crazier.
You don't hear about cryptids and UFOs. You really hear about that in the Bermuda Triangle. It's maybe ships and planes missing.
Yeah.
The other ones have a lot more coming from them.
They do. They really do. And nothing is safe from the mysteries these triangles can impose on vehicles, people, planes, ships, and even trains. I wanted to discuss the section of your book which included a UFO colliding with a train and some of the strangeness involved with all that. What a great story of a train hitting a UFO at roughly 30 miles an hour with 16 tons behind it, and the MIB type events that happened afterwards. Can we get into that?
Yeah, so this train was, it was going along. This is close to Louisville, Kentucky, a small town. And the train is going along, and it's at night. And they're coming around a bend, and they saw a light, and he thought it was another train coming on the opposite tracks. So he kind of dimmed his light so it wouldn't shine in their eyes. But when he came around the tracks, it wasn't a train. It was a UFO sitting on the tracks,
Mm-hmm.
a big saucer shape. And before he could try to stop the train, which you can't stop a train immediately, it hit the UFO. The UFO tried to take off, but it clipped the top. And so now he's got damage to the train. So he called in and told headquarters what happened, and they says, "Okay, just stay there. We're gonna come for the train." But the thing was, they says, "Okay, well, we decide we want you to take the train to this other location where they can repair it." So he thought it was kind of strange that they had him go to a depot that was no longer being used.
Right.
It was like in the middle of nowhere, but he says, okay. So he pulls in there. Everything's dark. And all of a sudden, these spotlights turned on, and he's hearing car doors slamming, and all these men are rushing up to them, men in black.
Mm-hmm.
And they took him into a building, started interrogating him, telling him, you're not going to talk about this. We don't want any more talk about this. And then when he went back outside, he noticed that the damaged engine was gone. It went somewhere.
Yeah.
It was a very strange story.
So strange. So wild. And, you know, it is. It's just unbelievable. You know, that's not an easy thing to move, you know, the lead engine on a train. Another mind-blowing train story that made your book was the Pope Lick Goat Man, and not to mention disappearances in this unique area. Can we tell listeners a little bit about this?
Well, supposedly, and I don't know if it's just a legend or if it really happened, there was a train, a circus train, that was going over this old wooden trestle, and there was an accident. The train fell off the tracks, and they had, like most circuses do, they had some kind of a creature in a cage, and they always treated it bad, you know, poke it with a stick, all this stuff. And this creature got loose, and they call it the Pope Lick Monster, and supposedly he still walks around the tracks up there, and people are crazy. They will climb up the tracks looking for him, not knowing that this is still active tracks and trains come by. And so many people have been killed because they're up there and a train comes by and they got nowhere to go except jump. Hopefully they see the train, but a lot of people just got hit by the train too.
A lot of cases. I was totally blown away by how many cases of people, you know, this, I guess it's called a trestle, it's just taken, I mean, it just went on and on. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people that have lost their lives right here.
I know people looking for thrills. I mean, I might go there and try to see if I see something, but I'm sure not climbing up on top of the trestle.
That's right.
That's bizarre.
Super bizarre.
People have just fallen off the trestle trying to climb it, let alone be hit by the train.
Right. That's right. It's a wild story. And it's a wild story about the goat man because, like you said, I mean, such a sad story at the beginning, but now seems to roam the area. And some other strange creatures that made the book were the dog man and the Sasquatch. And of course, I would like to discuss the dog man, the Michigan dog man a bit, and some of his history.
It's almost like, not quite like a wolf, but it's got the body of a man, the head of a dog. Yeah, and it's just seen out in the woods a lot. I've never actually seen him yet. It could be possible someday I would run into him.
Yeah.
I've had more instances running into Bigfoot in Michigan than the dog man, but who knows?
And you're actually out there doing it. What's nice is you actually go out and explore, and you're not, I guess, an armchair researcher by any means. I thought that was really cool. You also had multiple sections in the book about harbingers of death and MIBs, like we've already kind of discussed. Can we discuss a little bit about the history and the story of the dam that could not break and some of the harbingers with that?
That is the most bizarre story. There's a dam. It's called the Austin Dam, and it's in a valley, and the original dam was just made out of rocks and mud, and so of course it would burst all the time. But a man from New York came over to the area, and his name was George Payless, and he thought this would be a good place to build his pulp and paper company because there was a lot of forest there. So he hired a man to come over and build the dam for him. He gave him a certain amount of money to spend. And the man says, well, you're kind of cutting corners here. We need special reinforcement bars down on the bottom to keep it strong. No. Just do it. Just do it. We need to have it done. It's getting to be December, and we got to get this done. So on January 17th, 1910, a portion of the bottom started to leak. Well, they patched it up, and the engineer said, well, I can do such and such to make it better. He goes, no, we're good. We patched it up. It's okay. So in the meantime, a stranger, a tall, dark man dressed in black, started hanging around the Buffalo Railroad tracks that were next to the dam.
Mm-hmm.
He would ride on the train. He wouldn't look at anybody. No one looked at him because they didn't want to talk to him. He'd be seen running in and out of the cars, running across the top of the trains.
Whoa.
But nobody wanted to talk to him, ask him why he was there. And there was a lady that lived up on top of the hill by the dam. Her name was Cora Brooks.
That's right. Yeah.
The other women in the town never really talked about her unless they talked about the woman who ran the brothel on top of the hill. So one day she was sitting out on her porch, and she heard a really strange sound, and she looked, and the dam had burst. So she runs down, starts alerting the town. People got up to high ground. Before the dam burst, there was just lumber and just all kinds of stuff just running through, rushing from the rushing water. Nobody got killed. And now everybody, when they spoke of Cora Brooks, they talk about the wonderful woman who lived up on the hill and saved the town.
Yeah.
And the stranger was never seen again. And they think, was he a harbinger of something to come? And it's very similar to the Mothman sightings near Point Pleasant, West Virginia on the Silver Bridge that happened December 15th, 1967.
It really is. Super similar. It reminded me a lot of Point Pleasant, and
Yeah.
And I love that it was called The Dam That Could Not Break. Such a great story behind it. And
that's what George used to say. He goes, don't worry, this is the dam that couldn't break. That was his motto.
Exactly. Oops. Spooky. And that harbinger, I mean, just wow. It was definitely one of my favorite parts of the book. Another very interesting section that I have to mention is the Enfield horror. And is it okay if I read just a quick excerpt about Enfield?
Sure.
The Enfield horror of Enfield, Illinois is probably one of the strangest cryptid encounters ever recorded. On April 25th, 1973, a 10-year-old boy named Greg Garrett claimed to have been attacked by a mysterious creature as he was playing in his backyard. It was 4 feet tall, had 3 legs, grayish slimy skin, short claws, and huge red eyes. The creature approached him and stomped on his feet, tearing his tennis shoes to shreds. I mean, damn.
And I used to live in Illinois, and I never knew about all this crazy stuff when I lived there.
Wow. It's so wild. And Enfield, that kind of wasn't the end of it. It more took place. Can we go into some of the other stuff that happened? Other people seem to have seen this thing, and I mean, the way it was described is one of the weirdest cryptids I've ever heard of.
Well, there were also people that liked to hang around down by the stream that was there. And this other couple was down there one night, and again, they were sitting in their car, and they saw this creature, and they start running too. Police have seen it. The one guy used to see him. He likes to walk along the railroad tracks. They would see him all the time walking around the railroad tracks. What is he? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He never really hurt anybody, never attacked anyone. Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was sure scary looking.
Freaky. Super freaky. And I loved the image in the book of it. It was like horrifying. And another...
Yeah. I wouldn't want to see that.
Right? It was super scary. And I love that your book has so many images of a lot of them. And a lot of them you've taken yourself, which I thought was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been to some of the places. I'd like to go to more.
Another section, speaking of officers that saw this creature, there was another section also in the triangles that included a UFO that multiple officers saw. And this was, what's interesting is it even concluded with a NIDS investigation, the National Institute for Discovery Science. Can we go into that case a little bit?
You're talking about the one with the boy that first saw it?
Yes. Correct. Yes, it was the, I believe, is it the St. Clair Triangle? I think it was.
Yeah, he was just walking home one night after he went to his girlfriend's house. He's walking home, and all of a sudden he saw this craft, and he ducked into the trees, trying to get away from it. And he went and told the police because he knew an officer that was a friend, and they went out and they also saw it. And there were like newspaper articles because they took pictures of this thing, whatever it was, and it stayed in the sky for quite a while too.
Yeah.
It never really landed or abducted anybody or anything like that, but it was present for quite a while.
Yeah. It was such a cool story and so much backup. It seems like so legitimate. I mean, even NIDS did a report on it and multiple people saw it. So cool. Something else, living in Nevada, I was blown away by some of the history, including the lead mine where Groom Lake is now located. I know I thought I knew everything there was to know. And this was something that really astonished me. Can we go into that, a little bit of history?
This really surprised me too, because I thought I knew everything about Nevada. This is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so way back in 1872, Jonas Osborne and his partners got a homestead for 400 acres, and they filed a claim to operate a mine, which they called the Conception Mines. And it was on the mountainside overlooking the dry lake bed.
Mm-hmm.
In 1937, the mine was purchased by Patrick Sheehan and his brother, who successfully mined lead, silver, copper, zinc, and gold. And everything was fine until one day in 1941, the government sent surveyors to the region to search for a place where they could test artillery gunnery and weapons. Now, the guys realized these were city people, and they probably wouldn't survive in these elements. So they invited them to stay in their bunkhouse, trying to be really nice.
Mm-hmm.
But soon they discovered, like the old saying goes, no good deed goes unpunished.
Right.
Because little did they know that just below them, the Nevada test site and training range would be setting off atomic bombs. So some of their family members got cancer, their animals died, some of their property was blown up. And if that wasn't bad enough, in 1950, the government decided they wanted to close the roads going to the mine because they didn't want anybody to see what activity they were doing. So they had a big fight with the government saying, we got to be able to get there. They almost arrested them a few times when they're trying to go down their own road.
Mm-hmm.
And what they really wanted to do was the government wanted to buy their property. And they refused to sell it. They wanted to give them maybe half of what their property was worth, and family said no. They says, well, you don't understand all the equipment we have here. And so the government says, okay, then we're going to condemn it under something called eminent domain, where they could seize the property, which they did.
Yeah.
They seized their property, never paid them.
Super shady. Yeah.
And right here in this area, next to Groom Lake, is a place called Area 51.
Go figure. Such a good story. And, you know, that is, it's such an amazing story. And that is not the end of it. Like, there is more to Groom Lake, Area 51, and modern times. Your book mentions S4 goes into Bob Lazar, Dan Burish. Mm-hmm. But one particular thing that a story that is, we just have to touch on that I thought is just beyond freaky was CIA Director William Colby in how he was part of Majestic and how his body was found. Can we go into that story?
Yeah, it's because whatever happened in Majestic 12 was private.
Right.
Some of the documents I found now is because they've been declassified. You can search on, it's called the Vault. You can go to the Vault and you can find declassified documents. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to start talking about this stuff. And as soon as somebody wants to start talking, either they disappear, something bad happens to them. Look at Bob Lazar. Mm-hmm. They said Bob Lazar never worked for them. They got rid of his college degree. Mm-hmm. They just tried to make the man go away. Luckily, they didn't wipe him out.
That's the truth. That's the truth. And it's
that's what happens when you try to talk about UFO stuff that government doesn't want to share with us.
Yeah. And I thought it was super eerie how, you know, this CIA director, you know, talked to his wife. Everything seemed fine. And then, lo and behold, they find his canoe and there's a huge search. They don't find him. And then it almost seems as if he got taken somewhere else and then placed there.
Well, he had to be because his cell phone was still sitting on the table. His computer was up. It was like he was just busy doing something. And then he just left. It was getting dark outside. Why would he take his canoe out in the dark? Mm-hmm. He was an experienced canoeer. He knew not to do this. And then when they did find his canoe, it was like it was tied to a place. No, it just nothing added up.
No,
nothing.
No, it was very...
He was taken away.
Yeah, he got...
Someone came to his door, took him, then put that canoe back.
Right. And
I'm sure he wasn't even anywhere near the water. They took him somewhere and he's gone.
I'm with you. That's what I think happened too. And it is scary, all the constitutional rights that you sign away when you get into some of these top secret echelons. Yeah. Another portion of the book that I was blown away by was the American Stonehenge, and you have multiple pictures and an explanation of it. Can we delve into something that I think a lot of listeners probably don't know about?
You talking about Alaska?
It was, let's see here, I believe...
Which one?
I believe it's underwater, and
yep. That's the one. Yeah.
I thought that was just wild.
Back in Alaska, they have an early warning system. It's called the DEW line, mm-hmm. to warn the government if there was anything coming from Russia because it's right next door. And so one day they were getting some really weird signals coming from the ground. And they thought, well, maybe someone from Alaska got there and they were doing something, try to destroy the DEW system. So they says, okay, we got to check. Well, when they start checking, 150 feet beneath the Earth's surface, they found some kind of structure. And so again, we have a secret organization called code name Dark Period, really good name, right? And they found a triangle under there. It's 1,150 feet tall, which each side measuring 1510. It's actually twice the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is only 755 feet. They don't know why it's down there, who built it. Was it human? Was it otherworldly? They don't know.
Yeah.
But they feel like it generates power.
Yeah. It's a good one. And there's so many instances like that in your book that you have so much information on. It's really, really everything from disappearances to unique areas. I was really blown away, and I think it's really well done.
Thank you.
You also go into a lot of the history about each location, which is so cool because you kind of get to know the location before you find out about the strange entities or the disappearances or the triangles that seem to be dimensional. And one very creepy case that I would like to touch on is the molasses tank explosion. I mean, that was horrifying. I can only imagine being there where 2.3 million gallons of warm molasses, which, I mean, I can only imagine that would be like, napalm. I mean, horrible.
And you saw the photos. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't even describe it without seeing the photos.
No.
It was like goo. People were stuck in it. Horses were stuck in it. Everything was just stuck.
It's so
It was
creepy.
big, thick, hot molasses.
So,
And what happened there was one of the bolts in the tank let loose, and the whole tank exploded. And it did. It just destroyed almost the whole town.
wild. And, I didn't expect it to happen. Of all places, Boston. It's so wild.
Well, strange things can happen anywhere.
That's the truth. That is the truth. Now,
The sad part was there were 4 little children playing there, and they got caught up in it.
yeah, there was a lot of death too. It was pretty wild. And I was amazed by how much, whether it be there a lot of things happened back east, but especially around Michigan, and it would make sense because you've explored this area yourself. But the amount of ships that have disappeared across the Great Lakes, it's just mind blowing how many, and some under very strange conditions.
I mean, you can expect, like the Bermuda Triangle. There's rough water. There could be winds. There's reasons that planes and ships could go down. Okay, so and some of the disappearances are just weather related. But yeah, there were just other things that the weirdest one was on the Thomas Hume, where the captain was just going through this area called the Three Sisters. And the Three Sisters is actually where you would find 3 big waves in a row.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have a little lull in between, and it's very dangerous water. So they had just gone through there. Everything was great. He says, I'm going to go into my cabin now and take a nap. When we get to shore, wake me up. So he goes in there and he locks the cabin door. They get to shore. They knock on the door. He's not answering. They get the door open. He had disappeared. Disappeared right off the ship.
Wow.
There was another ship one time in more modern time where members of the House of David, it's kind of a cult, religious cult, and they were out on the ship and they all disappeared, but their ship was fine.
Wow.
Like where do these people go when they're out on the water?
Seriously.
If you went through a portal, wouldn't you think the whole ship would be gone or other people would be missing? But just a few.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And it's like that with these triangles. They seem to be dimensional doorways traversing time and space. And you did mention here one close to me. I mean, I live just a few miles from it. Actually, it is the Nevada Triangle, and people. It's kind of wild, but people still avoid that to this day. Private plane pilots, and there's just so many cases. It's one of those things. It's a unique area, but after so many cases, it doesn't matter whether you're superstitious or not. You just kind of start avoiding these areas.
Well, and you could hear people talking about their instruments on their planes go crazy. I mean, that's not being superstitious. That's a fact, and you have to be careful about that. And a good pilot needs to be able to navigate without his instruments, knowing that if the compass is wrong or something's telling one reading that he's got the plane under control, because there's times that planes have flipped upside down because they were trying to follow the readings there.
Mm-hmm. So true. And
of course, that's where the old Roswell incident happened, and they tried to cover that up too.
And that's kind of where I was kind of headed.
I knew you were going there.
You read my mind. I was going towards the whole Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and Roswell and how they all kind of tie up together. And your book really goes into awesome depth about that and talks about operations that other people really kind of look over, I think. Everything from Operation Bluefly to Project Moondust. And can we get into just how, I know people have heard about it before, but some of the cover up and how they went about trying to cover it up?
Well, it was 1947, and J.B. Foster, who was a rancher, was out checking on some of the herd, and he found some strange pieces of, he thought were metal, or some kind of strange metal he's never seen before. So he took it home, and he went back and he showed his neighbor, Will Proctor. Well, they tried to bend it, they tried to burn it, they tried to beat it with a hammer. Wouldn't change. So he went and told a newspaper reporter, told the local police, and the government came up, of course, confiscated everything, started interrogating them, and made their life really, really bad.
Yeah.
And as the story goes, they took this stuff back to Area 51, that they had a craft, and they actually had a living alien that they called Evie, and they were trying to talk to her. And then they flew a lot of the pieces, and her, supposedly, to Wright-Patterson Air Force Field, which is in Ohio, which I want to go there someday because that's close to me.
Me too. I want to go there.
But again, you've got the cover-up with the Majestic 12 team. And they had a very interesting document that they wrote up, and it was called Extraterrestrial Entities and Technology, Recovery and Disposal. That's scary.
Yes. And I thought it was cool that you actually even had an image from the instruction manual in the book. And I thought that was so cool. And it goes into detail on like you're saying, what they do in these scenarios. As we wrap up, Cheryl, you've really created a fairly unique work of literature here. Can we tell our listeners, before we forget, where they can best purchase the book and support your efforts overall, as well as keep up with your work?
You can get it on Amazon.com, or if you want an autographed copy, you can just message me on Facebook, and I can send you one, because I have some copies here too. I also have a website, CherylLynnCarter.com. That mostly has my paranormal investigations, my photos from different places I've been to.
Awesome. And it's something we should all support. The book is something everybody should buy. It's not only a super killer page turner and like I read it so much quicker than I was expecting, and just because I didn't want to put it down, and just mind blowing, really well done. And I like how you go into the ancients as well. You don't just gloss over it in like a modern way. You go into like the historic Native American aspects of many of these locations, and I think that's very noble of you. As we wrap up here, another creature that I want the listeners to know about is Big Muddy. Can we go into the Big Muddy, the monster?
That Big Muddy was also just like a hairy creature. Wasn't exactly a Bigfoot, but maybe similar.
Mm-hmm.
And he liked to hang around in the swamps, and people would see him. But then again, he never hurt anybody. He never tried to do anything. You would just see him, and again, he was another one that they would see walking along the railroad tracks. I don't know what it is with railroad tracks and these creatures. Must be something there I need to figure out.
Yeah. I've heard
there were many, many sightings. Even the police got to see the Big Muddy.
Yeah.
And that's why they called him that, because he would be just covered in swamp.
Yeah, it's very common. It does seem like railroad tracks and areas of these long scars along the landscape have a rich history of liminal entities as well as happenings taking place along them. And I've read deeply into this, but like you said, there's got to be more to it. These long scars on the landscape, anytime you see like a long straight railroad track, it is kind of I don't know. It's an area where these liminal entities and strange goings on sometimes happen. Another area that I wanted to touch on is, I was really again in the Michigan area, is the Paulding Lights. Is that something that you've seen yourself? I've always been mesmerized.
No, that's up in northern Michigan.
Uh-huh.
No, I have not seen it. It's an area, I guess there used to be railroad tracks that went through there, but they're no longer there. But some people say that after a train crash, it's one of the men from the train with a lantern. He's lost. He's walking down the tracks, but they're not there anymore. That's the story about that one. No, I have not seen it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no city lights there. There's no way you would see any other kind of lights. But it looks almost like a lantern.
It really does.
But again, with our railroad tracks.
Yeah. It seems like, historically railroad tracks kind of did this, and more modernly, it seems like nuclear plants have a lot of strange, and you have cases in the book about that. Like, it seems like nuclear areas have everything from unidentified flying objects to, things that can't be explained. I believe there was one incident in your book, I'll probably murder this word, the Manitowoc incident. Is that right?
Yeah. Again, that's in the Michigan Triangle, but that's actually in Wisconsin.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this guy was just talking to his friend on the phone about UFOs, UFO stories, and he was upstairs, he looked out his window, and he saw this huge, strange light over in the vicinity of the power plant. And he goes, well, I gotta call my friend, and he's a photographer, I can't do very good on my cell phone. So he got a hold of his friend, who's like 40 miles away, and he started filming this event while they're both watching it. And you saw the photos. It's like it wasn't a craft. It's like a huge flame. And there were other little small ones over on the left side, and they couldn't even be sure if the little ones were going into the large one or if they were coming out of it. And they would start twinkle different colors, like Christmas tree lights is how they explained it. And they watched it for like 40 minutes over this nuclear plant. And I actually have a Facebook friend when I posted this last week, and he says that he lives close to the plant, and he says he sees strange lights over it all the time.
Wow, that is so wild. Michigan Michigan seems to have, and Wisconsin, I mean, whether it's the Dog Man or UFOs or a lot of high strangeness, multiple sections of the book delve into this area that has a ton of high strangeness. Yeah.
I'm glad I live here, but like I said, I wish when I lived in Illinois that I would have checked everything out. Like down in southern Illinois, a few years ago when I started writing the book, one of my friends in Illinois said, we're going down the Cahokia Mountains. You want to come with us? I said, yes, that's part of the or part of the Illinois Triangle. I said, yeah. It's called Little Egypt Triangle down in southern Illinois.
So interesting.
And it was this huge Native American civilization. They built mounds. I'm not sure how many there were originally there, but there's 180 mounds there now.
Mm-hmm.
And just the energy there. I went the day before they got there, and I walked around by myself, and we walked around the second day. It's a whole community, and as you're driving through the little small town to get there, you would see a mound in somebody's backyard or one behind the gas station. They weren't big, but there were mounds everywhere.
Whoa.
So when the farmers came to start farming this land, they probably just knocked down a lot of mounds. Who knows how
you would think, yeah,
big this place was, but now it's a national park. And there's one called Monk's Mound. It's as tall as a 4-story building. And there's actually steps going all the way up to the top. So, of course, I had to walk up the steps. It wasn't too bad. I think it was 144 steps. But when you get to the top, my friend says, stand over here in the middle. There was a huge vortex, probably about 12 inches of clockwise swirling air. And it goes all the way down through the whole mound.
Whoa. So cool.
When you stand up there, you can see the St. Louis Arch. You're up so high.
Are you serious? That's a big mound.
But it was a highly intelligent civilization. They did a lot of trading with Mexico because there were like beads and pottery that you would not find in the area. They were definitely Mayan. And what happened to these people? Did they just disperse other places or did they just disappear? They don't know.
So many mysteries.
Kind of like Chaco Canyon, how the people just disappeared.
Right. Yeah, it really is. It's just so mysterious how these unique places and unique people just disappear, much like the the whole dimensional aspect of the triangles you cover in the book. So cool that you go into the Forbidden Land or the Black Forest in the book. And you mention a creature among many, thunderbirds and things of that nature, but a creature called the squonk. Can we? It's so cool. I have to ask you to tell listeners about the squonk lastly, and some of the tales of the squonk.
He was just a little ugly guy. His skin had lots of folds in him. Just a little 4-legged creature, and he was so ugly that he was so sad, and he would just cry all the time. He was always crying, and anybody that would try to catch him, all they would end up with is water. And one day, this guy said he actually caught one, and he had him in a gunny sack, and he starts taking him back to his house, and the sack started getting lighter and lighter, and he opened it up and found out that it was just water. The little squonk had dissolved.
It's so cool. Such a good story.
A sad little guy.
Yeah. And the picture that you included in the book, the squonk is just, it makes you sad just looking at him.
I know.
Such a great book. Let's mention again to listeners where they can pick it up and your personal website as well, if that's okay.
Yeah. You can get my books on Amazon.com. If you want an autographed copy, just message me on Facebook and I can send you one. And my website is www.CherylLynnCarter.com.
So awesome. And it's a book I'm proud to have in my cabinet, and I know that I'm going to reach for it because there's so much information that is not in other books. And I think it's really cool how multiple sections of the book go into everything from Men in Black that we didn't even cover really to, all kinds of unique cryptids. I mean, the Kushtaka really got me. I mean, you go into, a creature that can steal a person's soul and prevent them from reincarnating. I mean, so many cool. Yeah. You don't leave anything out of the mix. The Dogman, the Sasquatch, everything is included. And I highly recommend the book for everybody listening. I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast, Cheryl. And I hope we can hopefully do it again soon.
We'll have to do it when I finish my next book that I'm working on.
Awesome.
It's called Earth Energies, about ley lines.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Can't wait for that one. That would be awesome. Well, I hope we talk again soon. And thanks again. And everybody go out and get this book. It's very unique and well written. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Cheryl Lynn Carter, Dimensions. Mysterious Triangles of the U.S., available on Amazon. Definitely check out her website as well. And hopefully we'll have her back on the podcast. Until next time, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off.